What if I told you that one of the greatest ever cycling performances in history, and certainly of the 21st century, by Nairo Quintana no less, has been barely seen by anybody and wasn't recorded in full? This wasn't at the Tour de France, Tour de la Provence, Paris-Nice, Giro, Vuelta for Quintana over the years. This wasn't even when he was on Movistar. This was when he had just joined Arkea Samsic at the start of 2020. Already he had set Mont Ventoux on fire, up to Chalet Renard, huge watts per kilo there in the opening race of the season for the French Pro Conti team. And so afterwards he was off to the Tour des Alpes-Maritimes du Var, which is a 3-day stage race in the south of France near Nice. A lovely little race with good television coverage now. Mike Woods won a stage there last year. It's on 18th to the 20th of February in about a month's time. This year, Nairo lined up the heavy favourite, but there was also Thibaut Pinot, Stora, some other strong riders. Stage 1 though, hilly stage, uphill finish, about 3Ks, 5.7%, and all of these stages largely look the same. No really steep climbs and no really long alpine climbs, or something like Turini in the area, which we'll see at Paris-Nice this year, but more like 3K, 6%. We'll see in the next stage, where Montferrand was the hardest, 5Ks, 8.5%. But stage 1, break went. Arkea and Trek didn't have any riders represented, so that they were controlling, and there was Turgis and Anthony Perez in the breakaway. They eventually dropped the NTT rider, and Anthony Perez, you'll remember from the KOM video I did from the Tour de France last year, he had that really exciting battle with Ida Schelling, and there was this like uphill drag. Eventually Anthony Perez would dust Turgis, who will become a more prominent rider, I think, in the public's consciousness, at least outside of France this year, because he will likely be Peter Sagan's strongest teammate and a co-leader perhaps in the classics this year. Perez won stage 1. Cofidis got the yellow jersey or golden style jersey for this race after that, so they'd be controlling the next day. And this stage 2 didn't actually look that bad. Yes, some longer climbs in the middle, but they finished with the 4.6K, 6.3% Col d'Ez, but not the normal way that maybe the riders do from training. This is a common warm-up ride in the Nice-Monaco area where a lot of the cyclists live. This is the Moyenne Corniche segment that you'll see on Strava, where they duck off right and started a bit early. See Thibaut on the left-hand side in the green jersey, Quintana on the right, Perez in the yellow wearing the leader's jersey. And yeah, this is not that hard a finish, honestly. And the way these guys go, they do 25 kilometers an hour plus on this sort of climb, and a break went, again with no Arkea rider, and I don't think a Cofidis rider either. Cofidis were controlling. But on such a finish, if the group gets to the base together, generally you will not see huge gaps. Usually though, the draft effect is so big and it's not that long, and so you maybe see 10 seconds at most, but not on this stage. And it's incredible that we all think of Nairo as his strongest, at his strongest in 2013 to 16 sort of region for Movistar, where he was the perennial Tour de France contender against Froome. But in terms of like raw watts per kilo, his best ever level was just about the start of 2020 when he joined Arkea. And here you see him handing off a bidon to a slightly confused teammate. Maybe they just met before the race. Quintana saying, listen, buddy, you need to take this because I'm about to set this entire Col d'Ez segment or road on fire. I'll be seeing you in about 10 minutes when you finish after me. And as I said, there isn't consistent footage of this race. I think this is locally recorded onto the motorbikes, and then maybe it was a Facebook stream or something, and we saw riders eventually getting dropped. There's no footage of the Nairo Quintana attack. We don't know what's happening at this stage. It's eventually going to cut to Thibaut Pinot in the green jersey and think, oh, it's Thibaut attack. We've seen it. It's exploded on this 26k an hour climb. Pinot's not in the lead. That speck, those 2 pixels ahead of him, are Nairo Quintana, who's put a big gap into Pinot. And we don't actually know exactly, or Nairo will know, Arkea maybe, or Pinot, exactly where on the climb Quintana attacked. So it's difficult to calculate accurately how much he was drafting and how that affects the watts per kilo. But he was absolutely flying. This is a what the fuck performance on Col d'Ez from Quintana in early February. And he was good at Provence, he was good at Paris-Nice after this, which we'll look at. He puts 40 seconds into a group of 23 riders on a 26-27k an hour average climb that was under 10 minutes long. Just absolutely insane performance from Quintana when he first joined Arkea. Here you can see the group behind him: Carmichael, Clark, Pinot, Masnada, etc. Of course, no Froome or Slovenians. Now, maybe the group played around once he'd gone out of sight behind him and that affected the gap a little bit. Certainly possible, but the watts per kilo estimations are from Nijacka that Quintana did around 7.4 to 7.6 watts per kilo for about 9 minutes and 15 seconds. This is one of the greatest ever sub 10-minute performances in history. It could be more if he wasn't drafting for that long and he attacked earlier. It could be less if he attacked a bit later, but that's the sort of ballpark we're looking at. This is higher than Quintana, both in Mende the first time when he attacked Froome, and then I think Froome beat him by a second, and then Mende 2018. Here's a graph of all of Quintana's best performances, and you see Col d'Huez 2020 is higher than Mende in 2018. Now, this is an unfair comparison because obviously when you're into the second or third week of the Tour de France, where Mende was in 2018, there's a lot more fatigue that is built up. So it's not a fair comparison to the second stage of a 3-day stage race. That being said, they raced this stage pretty hard. If you look at I went and took a look at Nicola Ede, Masnada, Stora's kilojoules per hour per kilogram that they expended in the 4 hours 50 before they got to the base of Col d'Huez, and they were doing at least 13.2, 13.4 kilojoules per kilogram per hour for 4 hours 50. That's pretty serious pace, but yes, they don't have a lot of fatigue built up from many stages beforehand. It certainly wasn't like rocking up to the base of Hatterdam or Hafit where they've done 11, 10 and just smashing it up there. And this was enough to seal GC pretty much for Quintana at Tour des Alpes-Maritimes du Var after stage 2. This run for Quintana when he just signed with Arkea was exactly what they thought they were going to be getting from him. Winning races, including a World Tour race, a stage at Paris-Nice, when he just signed with Arkea. Stage 3, by the way, was up to Montferrand. I think he might have done a decent performance here as well. Hard to be sure. It was actually the break that won this. Julien Bernard got the better of Nance Betez, kind of keeping him behind through this little chicane. But Nairo took out GC, one of the best performances that 99% of cycling fans have probably never seen the footage of before. He backed that up at the pandemic-affected Paris-Nice a few weeks later, where he took out the Le Colmier mountaintop finish where he gapped Benoit and put like 10 seconds per kilometer into him into the last 4 kilometers of that climb. Ridiculous performance there as well. And then Nairo was looking good at the Tour. You remember he was with Roglic, dancing with Rog and Pog in the Tour, and Roglic was marking his attacks on the Peyresourde stage, and it was only when he crashed on the Puy-Marie stage and he hurt his knee that it all sort of went bad for Quintana in the last 18 months. He bandaged that up, continued the Tour, but he hasn't been the same since. Apparently he had surgery on both of those knees to fix cartilage issues. And yes, he looked okay at the Tour this year, but still not what we'd expect from, or it just wasn't like the Quintana at the start of 2020, pre those knee surgeries. He also got hit by a car, I think, when he was training. So yes, like, mixing up with Woods and Co, being in KOM for a day, taking the Souvenir Henri Desgrange on the Andorra stage. This is still an above average rider, but it is not the Nairo that Arkea were expecting, particularly when he got dropped by O'Connor and Higuita on the teen stage when he was in this breakaway. So it remains to be seen whether Nairo can bounce back, whether maybe we don't know that he was still recovering kind of from those knee issues in the 2021 season. He usually starts the year pretty hot at Tour de la Provence. I'll have video rights for Tour de la Provence. I think he's going there with Arkea Samsic, and he is hoping that Nairo can reclaim that level that he had at the start of 2020, the mythical level at Provence, Tour des Alpes-Maritimes du Var, and Paris-Nice. Completely off the charts, sub 10 minutes performance from Nairo, man. But I hope you enjoyed the video. Like it down below if you did, and make sure to subscribe so you can see all the Tour de la Provence highlights and recaps on this channel in the next month or so. Ciao.